time, we just want to focus on matters to do with pastoralists when it comes to pastoralist change and climate change in terms of innovation. And to make us understand this topic is Dr. Hannington Odame, who's the CEO for the Center for Africa and Entrepreneurship. If I got it correctly, that last name, how do you get it? How do you pronounce it?
The CABE. Center for African Bio-Entrepreneurship.
I got it right.
CABE.
Yes. Now, Dr. when we talk about climate intervention, what are we talking about exactly?
First of all, let me thank Etienne for the opportunity to come here and share some insights of our work, but also the work of others. Climate smart agriculture interventions, we talk of triple wins. One is to increase productivity. The second is to enhance resilience. That is responding to short-term shocks like drought and emergence of diseases and pests, and then climate mitigation. And mitigation is to look at long-term adaptation, things like building dams. So when we talk of interventions, are the interventions to cope with extreme weather events, and this is droughts and also floods, like what we are experiencing now. What we realize that there have been two seasons, obviously, the long rains and the short rains. But due to climate change, the short rains are even becoming receiving more rainfall than the long rains, and this is why we are experiencing floods in many parts of Kenya. The interventions include improving, of course, food security and feed security, especially for the livestock, during drought a few months ago, and also supply of water recently when there was a drought in Kenya, and providing feeds and food to the people who are affected by the climate change.
But Atari, do you think, like let me not just say the Kenyan farmer, but African farmers, have they been given that awareness on how to handle, food crops or farming during the rainy season and the drought season?
There is always sometimes a gap in knowledge sharing and transfer, especially at this particular time when extension delivery is very, very weak. But we have to realize that the government is making an effort, especially through three documents. One is Vision 2030, and the second one is STGS, which is Agricultural Sector Transformation and Growth Strategy. And the last one, which was being referred to earlier, is the Big Four Agenda. Now, the plans are there, but sometimes the implementation of these plans is very weak in most cases.
All right. So when you talk about impact of climate change on pastoralist communities, like the Kajiado case study, what exactly are you handling? Because when you talk about Kajiado, Kajiado is one of the counties that experience, let me not say a bit, but, a large percentage of drought.
Yes, that is very true. In Kajiado, we're working with the county government, and the county government has prioritized provision of pasture and fodder to the livestock. And the whole idea is to prevent pastoralists from moving to Nairobi during times of drought.
So that's the reason as we have not been seeing cows along Langata Road, because some time back we saw several cows along Langata Road just trying to look for pasture.
Yes, that is actually one of the priorities of the county government, to try to keep or retain pastoralists in Kajiado by growing enough pasture and fodder, and also harvesting water in dams and silangas, these are shallow wells, so that there is management of plenty and scarcity. And our project is about managing plenty and scarcity towards pastoral innovation in response to climate change.
And let's talk about the resolution that was made during a conference. Let me call it a conference that was happening. And you know, during that conference, it was also realized that farmers are not engaged. They're not well informed when it comes to matters, pasture matters, weather pattern, when it comes to the changes of the hot season and the dry seasons.
Yes. A number of resolutions came up, but I'll focus on three. One of the issues which came up, although we have devolved government, sometimes we still have top-down approach in information dissemination, and the farmers were saying they require a kind of a bottom-up interactive approach, what we are referring these days as co-creation of knowledge, where researchers, government people, private sector, the pastoral themselves sit together, they interact and co-create knowledge that is useful to them and produce products that are relevant to their needs. That's one message that came out. And this relates to producing of pasture as well as harvesting of water, that they have knowledge, and this knowledge needs to be integrated with the scientific knowledge and make it relevant to the livelihoods of pastoralists. The second message that came out was about livestock insurance. Due to weather fluctuations, sometimes it's drought, animals die. When there is floods, also animals die. So the whole idea was, how do you be able to cushion these pastoralists? And the bigger agenda here is what we call de-risking investment by government, by the private sector, and also by the pastoralists themselves. So coming up with information sharing, let's say on weather advisories, market information, livestock insurance, forming of cooperatives, and community ranches and conservancies.
But you know, Dr. Dam, when you talk about ensuring, let me call it agriculture insurance, to ensure that farmers don't count losses, so much losses, or rather they're compensated during the flooding season and during the dry seasons. But you know, the question of many farmers in the country, and especially pastoralists, is which insurance company is ready to do that? Because we've been experiencing drought every year.
Yeah, this is why I mentioned the idea of de-risking investment, because this is issues to do with the fluctuations of weather are very difficult to predict. And therefore, either the government or development partners must bring in some guarantee funds so that any insurance company or individuals who are providing their resources, at least they are cushioned. If there is a loss, at least they can be able to recoup their investment.
So what sort of cushioning are we talking about? Is it just giving the pastoralists money, or when they lose their animals, is it the government or the county government buys the cattle and gives the pastoralists?
There are a variety of ways. One is provision of information, alerting farmers that this situation is going to happen. There is a second one, is that if it happens, this is how compensation is going to occur, especially during drought. And there is a pricing. There is what we call price stabilization. So we work with the different entities, the private sectors, the traders, who are informed. And the government puts aside some money to cushion these people so that they can be able to buy and pay farmers or pastoralists a fair price for their animals. Paying
farmers and pastoralists for the fair price of the animals. Thank you so much, Dr. Haddington.
Thank you.
Odame, the CEO of Center